This next story is going to be interesting and it's going to be comforting for some people. Bill passes in New York to end driver's license suspensions for unpaid fines and fees. The New York State Senate and Assembly have passed a bill to end a suspension of driver's licenses based on the failure to pay traffic ticket fines or fees. The legislation also creates a payment plan system for drivers. The bill must be signed by Governor Cuomo to become law. Sponsored by Senator Tim Kennedy in the Senate and by Assemblymember Pamela Hunter in the Assembly, the bill is part of a national push to address policies that unfairly impact low-income and minority communities. Through this bill, we're not only lifting the suspensions tied to unpaid traffic fines, but we're creating a system for New Yorkers to pay these fees efficiently and without fear of losing a job, missing a rent payment, or forfeiting an education due to personal financial challenges, says Kennedy. This measure has already been enacted in several states and is currently being considered in many others. New York needs to catch up. I'm pleased to see this reform pass the legislator swiftly upon our return to Albany, and I urge the governor to sign this important reform into law immediately. Citing data from the Driven by Justice Coalition, officials say a recent 28-month period, New York issued over 1.6 million drivers license suspensions related to traffic debt, and license suspension rates in New York are nearly 9 times higher in the 10 poorest communities compared to the 10 wealthiest. As the representative of one of the most impoverished communities of color in the country, I am proud to sponsor this legislation in this assembly, said Hunter. Criminalizing poverty through license suspension further destabilizes vulnerable New Yorkers. It undermines their ability to pay. Eliminating debt-based license suspensions and implementing a payment plan will help New Yorkers during this difficult time while also generating more revenue for the state through these income plans. So I thought this story was very interesting because we don't talk about traffic laws enough in this country. Many traffic laws are just simply there to create revenue for the state, to generate revenue for the state, or to get their arrest numbers up. I mean, just look at the war on drugs. Because of the war on drugs, it's given officers more reason, or more of a reason to arrest people or search their cars for drugs. I mean, marijuana is usually the talking point, but I want to legalize all drugs. I don't believe you should be locked in a cage just because you're a casual user or an addictive user. I think if we're going to help addicts, we need to put them in rehab. We need to do harm reduction programs like Portugal and Switzerland do. And then you have like the silly things such as like you can get pulled over for not like putting on your signal, or for not putting on your signal at a specific time, or merging without looking, or I mean, don't get me wrong, like the merging without looking thing, okay, that's kind of debatable. It's that'll cause an accident. But things like just like signaling, just not signaling when you go to a lane, like stuff like that is ridiculous. Like there's no reason why people should be getting screwed over because of things of that nature. I mean, and then like there are some states where if you don't have a rear view mirror, like you can get fined for that as well. And it's like, I mean, if you can perfectly drive and look in every direction that you have to go, then why the hell are you getting fined because you can't afford to put on your rearview mirror or whatever, And then you got things like the tint of a car. It's like if you really have that much suspicion that somebody's doing something in a car, shouldn't you have a warrant? Shouldn't you have like reasonable suspicion, like, with that logic, shouldn't we all have, like, glass houses so that the government can see what we're doing in our house? Like, this is a type of BS that they've been doing with the court system. Like, I mean, just the private prison complex alone. Like, let's talk about that for a minute. Besides the war on drugs, like, they've made things more of a crime. They've generalized more things as crimes on purpose so that they can generate revenue for the state. Even the CAA admitted that without these type of laws, without laws, victimless laws is what I'm talking about. We're not even talking about traffic, by the way. Like, they admitted, like, without these laws, they wouldn't be able to do what they do. And it's just really, like, a form of not only the government generating revenue, but having these private prisons generate revenue, and it's sick. Now, going back to the driver's license thing, I got a little carried away. There's so many things that you can get fined for, things that aren't even that serious. So we don't talk about this as much. Like, I'm not saying get rid of all traffic laws. Nobody is saying that at all. What I am saying, get rid of the traffic laws that are clearly BS and clearly don't make any sense. We have too many of those things. And the economy we have now, the wages that we have now that have been stagnant for over 20 years, we can't afford that anymore. We can't afford silly-ass fines. Majority of American families can't even afford a $400 emergency. 8 out of 10 people live paycheck to paycheck. Half of Americans are making 30 grand or less. Let me tell you something. You lose your car, it's a wrap, okay? I remember last year, I lost my car, which was my fault, but it was a struggle. Like, I mean, people have children. I mean, people have college. People have work. You know, so this idea that making their license suspended so that they can get arrested. I mean, people still need to go to work. People still need to live. You know, should we even have driver's licenses is the real thing. You know, should the state be allowed to make a liberty such as driving into a permit or a charge? I personally don't think so. I mean, don't get me wrong, they should have something where they can identify us if we commit a crime. You know, I'm not saying no IDs, but there are a lot of regulations that are not only infringing on our liberty, but are screwing the average worker. Like, we don't make a lot of money. And all you're doing is just hurting people. And I'm glad, and they're giving people payment plans, which is amazing, you know? So, there's a lot of things that I don't like about New York. But, you know, when I do see good things like this, you know, I'm glad, because I don't see this happening in a less liberal state. So, good job. Good job to our legislators finally doing something in this state.